Namaskar and welcome to StudyIQ. I am your friend Rahul Saigaonker. Today's discussion is again connected with Nobel Prizes, and I have to repeat that Nobel Prizes have not been announced for 2023. You do know that the Nobel Prize announcement for this year is going to happen from October 2nd, 2023. Then why are we having this discussion? Today, we are going to discuss about Nobel Prize and India, and we are going to raise a question why there is a drought of Nobel Prizes when it comes to India. Are we not competent enough in terms of science and technology? Are we not competent enough for research and development, for innovation? We'll try to answer that question. Let's begin our interaction. But before that, there is a small notice for all the UPSC civil services aspirants. StudyIQ's P2I program is going to begin from September 22nd. You have just a couple of days to enroll for yourself because this is the most comprehensive program for the preparation of civil services examination, where we will be hand holding you through prelims, mains, and interview stage. It's available in multiple formats. The course is available in English, in Hindi, and in a bilingual format as well. It's quite affordable. Just visit our website www.studyiq.com. You'll get all the information there. Enroll soon. I'll see you in the class. Right. Let's begin our discussion about Nobel Prizes and why there is a drought with respect to Nobel Prize. In our recent interaction, we understood all the nitty-gritties connected with Nobel Prize. How is it inspired? Who is it named after? It's named after Alfred Nobel. What are the different kind of categories? Who selects it? In our recent discussion. Today, we'll talk about India and Nobel Prize. There has been some amount of success when it comes to Nobel Prize for India. Again, a minuscule amount. If you look at the success story of Indians at Nobel, there's only one name from, I would say, physics, C.V. Raman, who has been given Nobel Prize. He got the Nobel Prize in 1930. Now, this is the only Indian from the field of, I would say, physics, chemistry, medicine, physiology, basically connected with science. There have been some other names like R. Venkatraman, Hargobind Khurana, Subramanyam Chandrasekhar. He was C.V. Raman's nephew, who have occasioned India's pride, who have contributed towards the sciences. They have won Nobel Prizes for their contribution, but we can consider them to be Indian diaspora. They did not hold Indian citizenship. Most of them, they held the US citizenship. They became naturalized citizens of United States of America. In fact, if you look at the list of Nobel Prize winners from India, now this is a list which includes Indians as well as Indian diaspora. Rabindranath Tagore was the first one to win a Nobel Prize, but he won it for literature in 1930. Later on, C.V. Raman, I told you, his contribution for physics was acknowledged by the Nobel Foundation, and he won the Nobel Prize for physics in 1930. Later on, Hargobind Khurana. Mother Teresa won Nobel Prize in 1979. It was a peace prize. In fact, many Indians have won peace prize. Mother Teresa has won a peace prize. Then Kailash Satyarthi has won a peace prize, right? Apart from that, S. Chandrasekhar, again, for his contribution towards physics. For economics, the Sverige Riksbank award has been conferred on Amartya Sen, and very recently on Abhijit Banerjee as well. So this is the list of all the Nobel Prize winners from India, and the red ones, they highlight that they're not Indian citizens. That means they're naturalized citizens of some other country, mostly United States of America. So from this, what do we infer? We infer that Indians have had very limited success towards winning Nobel Prizes. Does this mean we have less number of people working towards science and technology? Does this mean Indian population is not involved too much into research and development and innovation? Absolutely wrong. We come number 6th in the world in terms of number of people working in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Despite that, the success rate at Nobel has been quite low. Now the question is, sir, why does this happen? Are Indians incompetent to win a Nobel Prize? The answer would be no. And there have been many people who have highlighted this. For instance, Leon Lederman, who won the Nobel Prize in physics in 1988, he categorically highlighted there is a lack of opportunities in many countries. Verbatim, let me quote him. How many amazing kids, how many African kids, how many children in some remote village in India and China, they get lost and could become Newton or an Einstein. Lack of opportunities is a major reason in these areas where brilliant students, they do not get the requisite education and requisite opportunities. Chandra Mittal, Indian scientist who has contributed towards applied chemistry, he suggests that there is lack of political, cultural, and social capital in India when we compare India with the Western world. In the Western side, there is more investment towards R&D, more infrastructure is available, more promotion is there. But in India, this is something which is missing. In India, there is a lack of visibility as well as lack of peer recognition, especially in the field of research and development. And this has been mentioned by a scientist himself. So are Indians incompetent? No. But there are some issues for sure. Let's try to look at these issues. Why contributions from India have been little less? Yes, there have been some contributions which have not been recognized. I can say, for instance, Homi Jahangir Baba, his contribution has been quite immense, who have missed out on a Nobel Prize. Homi Baba, Satyen Bose, Biresh Guha for his contribution towards chemistry, Chandra Mittal himself, ECG Sudarshan. There are so many people whose contribution has been there, but somehow they have missed the Nobel, I would say, in a whisker. Yes. But in general, what are some of the issues? Why Indians have not won many Nobel Prizes? The first reason can be, to a certain extent, the Western biasness. All right. Now, we discussed about the Nobel Prizes. Who decides the Nobel Prizes? The Swedish committees, they decide. And there is a small amount of Western bias when it comes to Indians or when it comes to the Oriental research, for sure. You do know that. And apart from that, the Stockholm-based politics, yes, the Western bias in Stockholm politics to some extent have been biased towards the Western scholars, and they have been more and more biased towards discoveries as well. And this actually goes counterproductive to what Alfred Nobel himself wanted, right? Alfred Nobel, he wanted to recognize the inventions of recent times, but the Nobel selection and the Nobel committees, they select the scientists on the basis of their works which have been quite old. This has happened. In fact, for many scientists, it almost takes a lifetime for them to achieve that Nobel. So to some extent, yes, Western bias as well as Stockholm politics is responsible for lesser number of Nobel Prizes to Indians. But apart from that, the problem lies within. The biggest issue with Indians not getting Nobel Prize is the issue of brain drain. In fact, I showed you a list. I showed you a list of people who have won this Nobel Prize. And if you look at some of the names, especially the names in red, they could have won in India if we had provided all the stuff, if we had provided them requisite infrastructure, the laboratory facilities, all the things, they could have won probably in India. But it did not happen. They left India. They went for better opportunities abroad, and there they contributed towards science and technology and won the Nobel Prize. That means brain drain is happening in India. And this is a reality. It's a reality for, I would say, many decades now. In fact, what is this brain drain? Brain drain means the departure of highly qualified people, especially scientists, engineers, etc., from India to other countries where they have easy migration policies. Right? You can name many people. See, for instance, it's not just connected with R&D, but even for business, even for any other kind of opportunities, many people leave India, go abroad to settle and work there. That brain drain is quite real. We all know that. It's not just the external brain drain. Of course, external brain drain is happening. You do understand that many people, because of lack of facilities in India, lack of income in India, lack of recognition in India, lack of peer recognition in India, they leave India, they go abroad where the facilities are better, and they contribute there and win medals and Nobel Prizes. The external brain drain is happening, but there is a problem of internal brain drain as well in India. Now, what is this internal brain drain? People who are skilled, people who are engineers, people who are professionals, they are working for companies of foreign capital. That is called as internal brain drain. But I would say this brain drain is not just with respect to, I would say, skills, the brain skills. Even the muscle power or the muscle skills are also draining from India. I can give you an example of the migration towards the Gulf countries. There are many people who are working in Gulf countries where many of them are engineers, many of them are construction workers, laborers, etc. That means even the muscle drain is also happening to some extent from India. So this is a problem. Why? Because there are less number of higher education opportunities which are available in India. Once they study, R&D opportunities are not there, employment opportunities are not there. Apart from that, The other countries, they are having favorable migration policies, especially European countries and the countries whose average age each is increasing. I can give you an example of Japan. That means they have easy migration policies and they want skilled workers for their own countries. So they have created good, easy migration policies, because of which brain drain is happening. Apart from this, there is also in general an issue of lack of innovation and requisite support in our country in terms of funding, in terms of the money spent on R&D, in terms of infrastructure facilities, lab facilities, etc. Apart from that, as a society, India is not pro R&D to a large extent. There is lack of societal support. Now, let me give you an example. In Indian society, as soon as a child is born, they say, I'll make him an engineer or doctor. If they do not have opportunities here, let me send them abroad. That's the idea. Now, how many of you have thought that let my child enter research and development? How many of you have thought, let my child enter into the innovation field, R&D field, and bring a Nobel Prize for India? That thought process, that attitude itself is lacking. Now, apart from that, I mentioned about lack of innovation and requisite support. Let's delve a little deeper into this. Let's try to dissect this particular issue. Now, we can raise a question here. How many Nobel Prizes have been brought in science from the so-called great IITs of India? Right? Indian Institute of Technologies, temples of science and technology as envisaged by Jawaharlal Nehru. How many Nobel Prizes have come from the IITs? Can you count? What are the issues? See, first of all, in India, if you look at Indian universities, Indian research and development scenario, according to economic surveys, again, this is a little old data, 2 to 3 years old data, economic surveys have continuously highlighted that India's spending on R&D in terms of percentage of GDP has been stagnant from almost 2000 to 2020 to about 0.6 to 0.7% of GDP. Although in the last few years, yes, we have crossed 1% of the GDP in terms of R&D expenditure, but for almost 2 decades, it was rather stagnant. And there is a testimony. I told you, this is again a news from 2018. India's R&D spend has been stagnant for 20 years at 0.7% of GDP. This was highlighted by economic survey itself, but things have improved in last 1 or 2 years, but not extraordinarily. Now you have a question. Sir, if I spend more money, will I get more Nobel Prizes? Again, I wouldn't say there is a strict analogy or strict connection between the two, but yes, countries which have been spending heavily on R&D, they have got higher number of Nobel Prizes. That means the outcomes are there. Now, this is a graph which shows you countries which spend 0 to 0.5% of their GDP, they have won only four Nobels. This is the data till 2014. And countries who have been consistently spending 2 to 3% of their GDP on research and development, they have won about 468 Nobels till 2014 in science and technology. Huge numbers. Now, apart from that, when you look at India, in India, there are only few heavily funded institutions like IISc, CSIR, DRDO. They conduct real research and development. In India, the government participation itself is quite high. That means government funded or government participation R&D is 55%. That means in private sector, there is no push towards R&D. And if you look at the countries which do extraordinarily well, for instance, UK, 7%, USA, 20%. If you look at institutions of higher education which perform R&D in India, it is very, very low, about 4% of institutions. But other countries, the contribution of higher institutions performing R&D is quite higher. Now, it is because of these reasons that the number of Nobel Prizes in India have been low. And brain drain is one of the problems which is responsible for this. And as I told you, the list itself, people who do not get opportunities here, people who find infrastructure attractiveness on the other side, they leave. That's one of the issues. Now the question comes up, so what do we do? We right now rank very low in terms of our science and tech and research and development. In terms of number of patents, number of startups in innovation, the numbers are still very low. That means we need to improve. what we need to do, we need to learn from the countries who have been extraordinary. For instance, the classic example would be Israel. Now, Israel and India's story are quite similar because both gained more or less recognition from United Nations at the same time. I would say somewhere around independence of India itself. But since that time, Israel has been one of the countries which has contributed immensely towards the Nobel Laureates. So we have to learn from countries like US, Israel, etc., how to keep on consistently winning Nobels. Apart from that, there are steps which are needed from the government and from the society itself. There has to be government support. Yes, there has to be societal support for collaborative research and development related activities. Apart from that, there has to be some sort of collaboration between industry and the universities, where open learning and scientific research has to be continuously promoted and reviewed. It's not like we're not doing anything. Now you must be thinking, sir, now you are talking completely in a critical sense itself. It's not like the government is not doing anything, right? The government has come up with a three-pronged approach to stop the brain drain. The government's first strategy is to create substantial research infrastructure so that people stay here. People who have gone out, for them, visiting faculties or visiting scientists so that they can contribute towards our country, that those stuff or such a strategy has also been brought. Apart from that, new opportunities are being created in India for postdoctoral research itself. So it's a three-pronged strategy that India is developing or India is working on to counter the brain drain. Apart from that, the government has brought many fellowships. For instance, there is under the Department of Science and Technology, there are different funding schemes. There are fellowship schemes under the Department of Science and Technology, Biotechnology, CSIR. There are different programs like Vajra, Inspire, National Postdoctoral Fellowship, Young Research Fellowship Program. There is PRIS, Performance Related Incentive Schemes. So many things are being developed from the government side to counter this brain drain. But the outcome or the achievements, they have to wait. So if you ask me, sir, when can we get a Nobel Prize? My fingers are crossed, probably this year. Let's wait. But very soon, if we are on this track and if we are able to counter the brain drain and if we are able to brain gain, then it is going to be a very good achievement and an extraordinary development for our country. So government is also coming with many schemes. The expenditure in terms of R&D is also increasing. It has already crossed 1% of GDP. Different schemes, different programs are coming. So let's wait and watch that the performance in terms of Nobel Prizes, it does increase in the upcoming years. And we will be waiting with bated breath for this year's Nobel Prizes, which would be announced from October 2nd. We'll keep an eye on that. Whenever it's announced, we'll have a discussion on StudyIQ. Sure. That is it right now in this particular interaction. Thank you for watching this. Jai Hind.